In the business world, the scariest threats are usually the ones you can't even see. So today, on The Explainer, we're going to go inside a company called GulfTech. We're going to see exactly how they built a defense system against these invisible risks that could have absolutely sunk them. It's a fantastic look at how the theory of risk management actually plays out in the real world.
I mean, this is the big question for any business, right? It doesn't matter if you're a tiny startup or a global giant. Every single organization has to figure out how to prep for something you can't physically point to, but that could totally cripple your operations. It's a huge question, and today, we're going to find the answer.
So to find that answer, we are diving deep into the case of GulfTech Solutions. They're a mid-sized tech firm, and for our purposes today, they're basically our real-world laboratory. This lets us see exactly how these kind of abstract ideas about risk actually work on the ground.
Okay, so here's our mission. GulfTech's management, they've already made a list of their biggest fears. We're talking everything from cyber attacks to losing their best customers. So now we're going to step in. We're going to put on our internal auditor hats and figure out if their game plan for tackling these risks is actually any good.
Right. So the very first step here is absolutely crucial. You have to take these big, kind of vague ideas like cyber risk and turn them into something you can actually measure, something tangible. If you don't do this, you have no way of knowing where to focus your energy first. And the main tool for this is something called a risk register. Honestly, it's just a detailed list of all the things that could potentially go wrong. But the real power of this document is that it forces everyone to get super specific about what those threats are.
Let's just take one of GulfTech's biggest worries as an example, a major data breach that leaks sensitive client information. Okay, so on a scale from 1 to 5, they've rated both the likelihood of it happening and its potential impact as a 5. In the world of risk management, that is as bad as it gets.
So how do we turn those ratings into a number we can actually work with? Well, it's pretty simple but really powerful math. You just multiply the likelihood by the impact. So in this case, 5 times 5 gives us a risk score of 25. That single number tells us instantly that this threat is at the very top of our priority list.
But listen, this score isn't just some number floating around in a spreadsheet. Its real power comes alive when you visualize it using what's called a risk matrix. This thing transforms all that raw data into a crystal clear map that tells management exactly where they need to focus their limited time and money.
And here you can see exactly why that score matters so much. When we plot that data breach risk on the matrix, bam, it lands right in the top right corner. That's the critical red danger zone. This visual is like a flashing red light for management, saying, hey, this isn't a problem for next quarter. You need to act on this now.
Okay, so we found and mapped out the biggest dangers. The next logical question has to be, what are we actually going to do about them? Because, just knowing a threat is critical isn't enough. You got to have a strategy.
And for any given risk, management basically has 4 main strategies they can pick from. They can try to avoid it completely, they can mitigate it to make it less severe, they can transfer the financial hit to someone else, like an insurance company, or they can simply look at it and accept it, and just live with the potential consequences.
Let's circle back to that data breach risk. With the highest possible score of 25, GulfTech's chosen response is to avoid it. And that makes perfect sense, right? They want to prevent it from ever happening in the first place, using things like stronger firewalls and better authentication.
Now, check this out. Let's look at another critical risk, losing key clients. This one scored a 20, but the response here is totally different, mitigate. And why? Well, you can't really avoid the risk of having clients in the first place, right? So the goal becomes to lessen the chances or the impact of losing them.
And this highlights a really crucial distinction. As the case study points out, you can't avoid a strategic risk like relying on your customers. I mean, that's fundamental to your business. So the only practical thing you can do is to mitigate it, using things like loyalty programs, long-term contracts, and just providing amazing service. But look, these strategies, they don't just happen magically. They're carried out through specific actions and processes called internal controls. And a great way to think about these is like they're the company's immune system, constantly fighting off threats.
These controls usually come in 2 main flavors. You've got your preventative controls, which are all about stopping bad things before they can even start. Think of a password on a sensitive file. And then you have detective controls, which are there to find problems after they've already happened, like reviewing security camera footage to see who broke in.
Now, auditors analyze each one of these controls with incredible precision.
Take a classic example, segregation of duties. This just means the person who approves a payment can't be the same person who actually makes the payment. An auditor would classify this as a primary preventive control. It's also feed-forward, which is a fancy way of saying it anticipates a problem. This insane level of detail makes sure every single control has a very clear job to do.
So, we've walked through this whole process from having a vague fear all the way to classifying a super specific control. What's the big picture here? What are the key lessons we can really pull from GulfTech's experience?
Well, it really boils down to 4 powerful ideas. First, scoring turns those vague fears into hard data so you know what to fix first. Second, your strategy has to match the risk. You don't bring a sledgehammer to fix a watch. Third, every control you build has to have a specific job, either prevent or detect. And finally, and this is a big one, auditors are there to check the plan, not to own the risk. That responsibility always stays with management.
And that, right there, is the ultimate goal. Just like the source material says, the point of all this isn't just to memorize the steps of an audit. It's to fundamentally change how you see a business, to transform risk management from a boring checklist into a critical, strategic way of thinking.
Because honestly, this framework isn't just for big corporations. Think about it for a second. What's one risk in your own work or life right now? A tight deadline? A financial goal? So what's your strategy for it? Are you trying to avoid it, mitigate it, transfer it, or are you just accepting it? Applying this kind of structured thinking is an incredibly powerful way to bring some clarity to pretty much any challenge you face.